Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and right off the backs of the patch 4.4 preliminary patch notes, my Twitch chat has let me know there are quite a few interviews that were translated by the Reddit Discord user Illuna. I always reference them. They're usually the person who's doing our live letter translations as well. So credit to them. Thank you again for your translations. Always appreciated. Every time we have to do a live letter stream, every time we do our overviews, and every time we look to the Reddit Discord for our translations. But there are other members on that translation team. So thank you to all of you who help contribute over on the Reddit Discord. Now, a lot of this information seems to be similar to stuff that's come out of the patch notes, with a few things that are clarifying the third zone of Eureka, as well as certain other key details that other people might hone in on. So these come out of a few different Japanese sources. You have Dengeki, you have Famitsu, you have 4Gamer. They're all listed right here on this blog.live door. However, I always have a hard time getting around that website, so I'm not going to pull it up right now. But that is the original source that also lists the other 5 original sources. So you have to dig a little bit, but all the sources are there. So there's just a bunch of edits here. It doesn't particularly go into too much detail of which details come from which interview. It's just kind of a synopsis of all the various stuff. And all of this is compiled by Miran Iranal on the actual Reddit post that we're reading right here. So with the buffs to Samurai and Black Mage, it should allow top players to do really well. I mean, that's anytime you give potency increases, like 20 potency here, 20 potency there. Yeah, it adds up pretty quick. Black Mage have a certain actions affected increase, which will increase average DPS. We already know Fire 4 got a 20 potency buff. Black Mage should have to make use of Lucid Dreaming. He means for the enmity section of it, I'm assuming, and I can already tell from edit number 3 that is more what he's looking forward to. He's like, Black Mages, if you're not having to use Lucid Dreaming to save enmity, then you're not doing good enough. You know how Yoshi P views you in his eyes now. Red Mage got a really big overall adjustment. We know they got some pretty significant DPS increases to various skills for the patch itself, now that we've seen the patch notes. Summoner got no changes, but the Radiant Shield damage reflect was removed. We saw that in the patch. Gonna add more places with silences and stuns because they're increasing roll action slots. So I'm kind of okay with that. Silences and stuns were something that I feel a much more prevalent factor in gameplay years ago. And then when roll actions were changed, I mean, they still definitely included them, but it feels like they're one of those things, CC doesn't really work in our game. Crowd control isn't a super huge factor in a lot of boss fights, in the cases that it is, it's usually, it's few and far between. So considering silence stuns is the one thing you can do where kind of a lot of people can participate reliably, and you don't have to worry too much about which jobs or which roles you take. Oh, by the way, I misread. It says they're not going to add more. I jumped the gun on that one. So I feel that they should, because we have so little crowd control to deal with anyway. If you're going to add more roll action slots, why are you not making use of all the actions that are in there? Your game allows for these things. So a simple thing that's like a time skill that otherwise goes really poorly, I don't know. I think they should make more use of things like that. And the fact that they are not going to add more places to it, which I should have read more carefully, is honestly for me kind of a more disappointing thing than it is that they're, I think it's disappointing that they're not going to add more places for me. Let's see. They're also going to adjust Slowy's rewards, add more MGP items, pricier than Fenrir. So because these are recorded before 4.4, no, it says in a future patch, yet they were talking about Zoe's rewards, because we know we're getting the Chupan mount in patch 4.4 that you can buy with MGP. I'm assuming he won't be pricier than Fenrir, since they're referring to a future patch here, but there will be items that are pricier than Fenrir in a future patch. They made MGP a lot more accessible nowadays, so I'm okay with that. Fourth Fight by AlphaScape was designed by the same guy who made Kefka. I don't know how to take that information. I was always of the opinion that I prefer bosses that can be moved, need to be positioned, have positionals, or at least that have those factors like in the fight itself. Fights like Neo X Death, where the boss just stays in one place, doesn't auto attack. I don't know. For me, they're not as exciting of an encounter, even though I think Neo X Death, considering the length of the encounter, was designed fairly well. I wonder, I hope it means that we'll actually see a boss that has those factors added to it. The random, the autos, occasionally having to deal with the crit auto. I don't know, having those elements in a fight makes the fight more exciting. That is a loud truck that is driving by. Goodness gracious. Difficulty is the same as usual, but the first 2 floors, something about being patient. I can't imagine those first 2 floors are going to be that much harder, even if they are. especially right after he gets done saying it's about the same as usual, or it is the same as usual. It's more definitive, but you know. Anyway, edit 3, Lucid Dreaming is actually, if you're careless, you're going to pull more hate. He thinks Black Mage can pull Threat now, even if they have Diversion. Yeah, so Lucid Dream. He doesn't want it for the MP. He wants it for the Enmity. Especially now that you have all your roll actions. He's just like, yo, listen, now no matter what, you got all of them. So you should have to use them. Oh, Yoshida. Oh, you. Second floor will not be easy. There will be resistance. Again, probably referring to the second floor of the Alphascape on Savage. I'm really curious about that fight now because, I mean, if you're going to say it's the same, but it's harder, that's weird. So I wonder if he's just referring to like mechanics that people have a hard time grasping necessarily, or maybe he's referring more to pugs and less to the hardcore raiders. He expects a few people to get walled off there more. Well, at least he's setting us up for that expectation. So now when it dies in an hour and a half, we can just be like, I don't know what he was talking about. I don't know. I mean, then again, compared to 06 Savage, it's got to be harder than that. At the very least, like back to catastrophe levels of difficulty. He wasn't super tough, but he was definitely the tougher of the second fights that we've had so far. So that would actually make a lot more sense of him to be closer to catastrophe level difficulty than 06 Savage level difficulty. Okay, that makes sense. Patch 4.4 is going to be chapter 0 of the expansion. Yeah, I mean, we already knew that. Sado and Magni will be back. And then there's like a whole bunch of posts here explaining Ascians and the original reincarnated. They have certain Ascians that serve as soldiers that spread chaos. We've seen that in the level 15 quest throughout the main story, if you all remember that one. Original reincarnations have always been low in number, and we're going to be diving deep into the Ascians, so it'll become clearer in time. And he wants us to pay special attention to the word calamity. So we're always paying attention to the word calamity. Our entire remake of the game was made with a calamity. So we're very in tune with the word. So I wonder if we are having another calamity, or if the prevention of the calamity is just going to be such I guess a forefront of the storytelling that we're just going to hear that word a lot. They've improved the system they use for the epilogue in 4.3. So that's the role-playing feature where you play as an NPC, for example, in 4.3. And I'm going to say it with a spoiler warning, so you now have like 5 seconds before I explain to you what happens at the end of 4.3 to mute the video. And when I do this again, it means that the spoiler's over. So 3, 2, 1... End of 4.3, you get to play as Alphino in the Burn, and they're going to be expanding on that system a little bit more to make it more useful in 4.4, and they'll be using again on a different NPC. Boop, spoiler over. Anyway, edit number 6 regarding Alphascape. Savage released at the same time, we knew this. Omega that shows up in the trailer is not Prime. Interesting, considering we know that Omega that whole realm is his playground, and that form that he takes up is not necessarily his real form per se. It's just the form that he kind of chooses in order for his for his encounters. We know what he can actually do, and it's far beyond what that little robot can actually do. Revisited 011 Savage. Normal was fine. The Savage version of playtesting didn't feel like you were fighting against the thing. Sounds like they weren't satisfied with the end result and made it better. Okay. Oto Savage, same staff as Kefka, we knew that. Difficulty roughly the same, but it'll get harder from 010 Savage, somewhat in line with these comments that were made earlier. Pyros. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, means fire in Greek, thanks. Secondaries that go above item level formulas will be usable outside Eureka. Okay, that's good because, it's at this point we're at the end of the expansion. Item level isn't going to really go up anymore. So having the relics kind of start to work towards that all-powerful mentality where they are the ultimate weapon that you could possibly obtain by the end of the expansion, I'm okay with that. Logos actions will not be unlocked by leveling up, but by finding items. Collaborate on how to find them. I'm kind of okay with that. If it encourages more exploration and more communication, and I guess less. Okay, let's be honest. There will never be less bitching and shout chat and Eureka. But if it encourages those things properly, I'm okay with it. Again, don't think it's flawed in concept. We have to see the execution. That's kind of how Eureka's been working out. Logos actions from Pyros will be kept, presumably, for the 4th zone of Eureka. Yeah. There's still more to Eureka. In the end, for the final zone, there will be public dungeons, which are kind of like raids done with everyone. Sounds very similar to the Diadem missions when they reworked it, and those did not go over that well. So, not going to lie, if I didn't say I'm not a little afraid for that, because I've been burned by that feature once before. I think it's a lot of work, and there's more after you finish the story. Secondaries are randomized, so if you want high stats, you're going to have to re-roll. Can I just explain why that doesn't make sense real quick? Here's the thing. I get that you want people to have like a long-term goal while they're waiting for the next expansion, and random stats, which was the same strategy you partook in Diadem. Let me explain to you why it doesn't work. Because the amount of time it generally takes to re-roll stats or to keep doing the content to try and get those stats, it's just not worth it. Because the expansion comes out, it's not going to matter. The next patch comes out, it practically doesn't matter. So please stop doing it. That's all I'm saying. Good. Unless the values are like already super high. Like, for example, you have this thing here. The secondaries go above item level formulas to be usable outside Eureka. Great. If the minimum value is the value that matches the item level formula, okay. If you want me to roll for higher stats, that's, I think, okay. Because it's still getting you that baseline amount that you want. And it's still the stats that you want. But if you're going to make it so they can go higher, and then that higher value is the one that's randomized, that I'm okay with. It still doesn't make sense, but it's also not inhibiting to the players who actually complete their relic and have something that is functional. But please stop doing it. We're making Pyros a bit closer to Onymos. I have no idea what that actually means. He can't talk about spawn conditions for Cassie. There's a bit of luck involved, which is why people haven't been able to confirm it. Okay. I think enemies in Pagos are harder to spawn than in Onymos because it's a different season. I mean, they're not talking about real-life seasons, so they're probably talking about weather effects inside of Pagos itself, so there's still some weather-related stuff people probably haven't figured out. Suzaku, Power Flames of Rebirth. Why Suzaku will be at a point in the story. It'll be sad. Well, of course it'll be sad. Have you heard what she says in the trailer? That's already sad. Roared as weapon. We all knew that was coming. After the fight, when they revert to humanoid form, there will also be changes to the field. During the battle, you probably won't be able to pay too much attention. We made some nice effects, so look around again. Oh, you think people aren't going to take the time to look at the nice effects you've created because they're in the middle of a fight? You have not seen our community do their work. There will be some fantastic pictures of it, I'm sure. And then this looks like the last edit. Some really fancy items to the new Uznair. Enough to make you really rich. Yeah, buddy. Difficulty 2 to 4 players. If the roulette stops on the exclamation mark, the yellow exclamation mark, there'll be a bonus mode where if you defeat the boss, the rewards will be increased by a lot. But afterwards, the roulette will only become bonus mode or Atamos. So it gets rid of all the other things that are on there. A surprise monster you all know will be there. There won't be small fry, only bosses. I'm okay with that. They're making the spawn rate of the shrine on the higher side. I'm assuming they mean the shifting altar of Uznair in particular, and they're going to lower it to 50% later on. I don't know if that means all of Uznair or if they're specifically talking about the shifting altars. I'm assuming they mean the shifting altars because it's the new piece of content. The Gazelle maps being weighted to send you there higher does make sense to get more people into the stuff they see being previewed for the patch. And then they'll lower it to 50% later. Makes sense as well. Item level for Suzaku and crafted gear will be close. That's the same as like Byakko was 355, and then the weapon was the crafted weapon was 350. It's similar to that, I'd imagine. Item level for Suzaku, yeah. So Zoe rewards will be adjusted. MGP items will be added at a later patch, pricier than Venderer. They said that in the earlier edit. Mannequins bought from the housing areas. We already saw that in the patch notes. We also already know the mannequins will only have the Mikote and both the genders, and more races will be added later. There'll be more ways to play in the cities. We're making the 14 housing areas where you live in, so they want to improve that. It's possible we add the Bonadori, but we're not sure yet. Okay, so that's everything from up here, from the edits that have been made so far to this post. But however, my Twitch chat let me know that there are some comments underneath that I should be taking a look at, so I scrolled down to a few of them to pull them up. This one right here, they are open to nerfing the Pagos Light grind, but but in a previous interview, he said he wouldn't do it. I feel like for me, it's not so much that they're open to doing it. He says, I think it could be reduced. We will carefully consider player requests and when to implement them when making our decision. I mean, let's be honest. Eventually, they have to nerf it anyway when the third zone actually comes out. So when Pyros comes out, it has to get nerfed anyway. So I don't know. For me, this doesn't really tell me a whole lot. It's something they're gonna have to do anyway. The Famitsu article goes a bit of depth. The Radiant Shield change reasoning is pretty dubious given how the Reflect actually works. The problem also affects Vengeance spike damage, including the same way. Okay, I don't think this is actually one that I needed. We scroll down here, though, we have a bunch of stuff about Eureka and the fourth zone. This specifically comes out of Dengeki, and because it's from the comment section, it's off-center a little bit, so I'll fix that for this much larger post. It's pretty interesting information. So, Pagos was in development before Onimos. Pyros was in development for a while. Somewhat more substantially shaped by feedback from Onimos. Okay, so if you say so, because Pagos felt like it was a big slap in the face of the way we did Onimos, so I'm not 100% sure how to take that statement. Patch 4.45's release will be about a month after patch 4.4. Normally when they say about a month, it's the 5-week patch schedule or the 5-week update schedule that we're on. That'll mean Pagos was like barely a factor. It was not around for very long because it was released so late into the patch. And if this one's going to actually be released 5 weeks into the patch cycle, it's pretty early. So, or not pretty early. It's like kind of when we expected it the first time with Pyros. But, okay, you know, that's their thing. So we'll get to try that soon. Pyros will be half covered in ice, half in fire, or half volcanic. That'll explain some of the scenes from the trailer. Relic substats can be determined by the player, thank goodness, but the values are random. The caps are higher than item level would normally allow, even when used outside Eureka. That falls in line with some of the other stuff they said. At least they say they can be determined by the player. So we do get to pick our off stats that we're actually rolling for. Still not a fan of the RNG factor. Eureka effects will work in future Eureka zones, and presumably they'll add more of them. And then there's a whole huge explanation here on the Logos action. So Logos involves killing specific types of enemies, regular mobs and enemies maybe. That's the editor adding that in. Let's see. Or complete certain actions to collect special items and crystals that can be traded to an NPC to combine into Logos actions. These actions will allow jobs to perform types of abilities they normally wouldn't be able to, such as tank abilities that increase max HP and defense drastically, or even healing abilities. There will also be actions that are specific to certain types of roles, such as melee DPS. There are about 50 actions in total, and you can have up to 3 active at a time. While you can't stock up on the actions themselves, you can stock up on the items used to create the actions. Some have cooldowns, usage limits or charges, or effect durations. Certain actions will perform better in certain situations, but the balance isn't particularly punishing in Pyros as it's the first introduction. So you're telling me that there's 50 actions in there, I gotta craft the actions, and then the actions have a limited number of uses or have really long cooldowns. I have no remote idea how to even take this information, because it's a lot of stuff for, I don't know, it doesn't feel like I don't care now, because I still don't really understand the scope of it and how it's supposed to affect my gameplay inside of Eureka itself. I like the idea when I read it higher up, the idea of, working together to try and find the items and collect them in order to craft this. But I think of how well people work together for anything that didn't immediately help them with the relic step in Pagos. Mostly the bunnies, because people just didn't see the value in it if it wasn't helping them get to their relic. Maybe because of the way stuff's laid out, maybe for the bosses and stuff in the third zone in Pyros and in the fourth zone, maybe you really do need these things to help get your relic progress. But unless that's abundantly obvious, people just don't, they're not super receptive to it, it feels like. So I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with this. I don't know. And my chat said it sounds like FFH draw system. Don't go there. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. The fourth Eureka Zone public dungeon. While Pyros will introduce the logo system, the fourth Eureka area is where its true purpose will become apparent. The fourth zone will feature a public dungeon array that's quite difficult and can't be completed without the help of Logos actions. Okay, well, we're fucked, because I didn't trust public dungeon / raid in Diadem. I sure as hell don't trust it in Eureka when I have to consider people having the right Logos actions to do it. Now, maybe this is a bit of hyperbole, and it's not nearly as important as it seems, but they are super useful. Maybe. Hopefully. Please, for the love of God. I don't know if I'll finish this relic at this rate. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, I'll take that statement for what it is at the time being and wait for future comments on it because it'll be in like 5.5 weeks at this point. But anyway, let me know what you think about some of the stuff to come out of the various translated, it says translated job changes, but just translated interview stuff would be more accurate since all that stuff that was edited down below is all there. Be sure to put that in the comment section of the video below on YouTube, and thank you for putting up with me. Again, Twitch chat, because recording this has meant a slower descend into Dragon Quest XI post-game, where I've been having a very good time. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you again for watching over on YouTube, on Twitch. Let me get these videos posted to YouTube, and then we'll play some Dragon Quest XI. Until that next time, take care.